Hello everyone, welcome to your talking newspaper for Friday 2nd of February. I'm Howard.
And I'm Madeline.
Let's start with the Society news for today then. On Tuesday there'll be a coffee morning held in support of the Society. That's Tuesday 6th of February at the Post Office in Knighton. Everyone is welcome from 10:30am till 12 noon. Also on Tuesday the Ride Swimming Group will be meeting to swim at the Waterside Pool Ride. The pool is closed to the public during the session. If you'd like to go swimming, please call the Society first to advise us of your level of swimming ability. Please note lifeguards are in attendance during the session. On Wednesday, the weekly coffee morning will be held at Millbrook House. That's Wednesday 7th of February. The coffee mornings are not just for blind and partially sighted people. Anybody can come along and have a cup of coffee or tea as well as a piece of cake. The Society coffee morning will be joined by the Macular Degeneration Group for their monthly meeting. The Thursday social group, that's the Knitters and Natterers, will meet on Thursday 8th of February at Millbrook House. The group meets from 10:30am till 2pm. You can knit or just natter, and then later in the afternoon volunteers come in and read to the group from different topics. Other news, we've been informed that some readers didn't have the In Touch recordings on the end of their talking news last week. We apologise for any inconvenience and have included both last week's and this week's recording on the end of this week's talking news. Thank you to all who informed us of this error. A message now from Don Haver. The years have passed quickly, for it's almost 20 years ago that Dolphin Swimming Club first took to the water at the Medina Swimming Pool in Newport on 3rd of February 1998. When that pool closed for refurbishment, the swimming club moved to their new home at the Waterside Pool in Ryde. On 3rd of February this year, the club will be 20 years old, and the swimmers will be having a celebratory dinner at the George Hotel in Newport. Many of the swimmers have been coming for years, and 4 who attended on that first evening are still swimming. Let's hope that the club continues for many years in the future, and we can welcome new members to take to the water. We've been asked what happens to the used stamps which we collect here at Millbrook House. Mel Barnes has informed us that the used stamps are taken to one of our long-term volunteers, Beryl Adamson. She has a contact who has an outlet for used stamps. They generate some £300 a year for the Society. So if you have used stamps, please send them to Millbrook House. Many thanks go to everyone who already collect their stamps for us. Independent Arts, a charity on the Isle of Wight, run weekly sing-about sessions across the island. Sing-about is a social singing activity and is open to all, even if you're not a budding Pavarotti. If you'd be interested in joining a session or would like more information, then please contact Laura Jasper to register your interest initially on 522205 or inquiries at iwsb.org.uk. Age UK are running regular digital inclusion drop-in sessions in various locations across the island. These sessions are a social, relaxed atmosphere designed for covering small pieces of learning, for example, sending an email, taking photographs, using the internet on your computer, tablet or Apple device. For more information on the times and locations of the sessions, please contact Laura Jasper on 522205 or inquiries at iwsb.org.uk. There's a quiz night in support of Sight for Wight, that's the Isle of Wight Society for the Blind, at the Waverley Inn, Carisbrook on Thursday 8th of February. Starts at 7:30pm. Tickets £3 per person, teams of 4. Food not included but may be ordered before the quiz. Please pre-book tables by calling the Waverley on 522338.
Following on with a list of known footway obstructions for works, including scaffolding or hoarding. We are unable to include end dates, as many are extended on a week-by-week basis. Also included are tables and chairs permits that have been issued in the past week. In the Bay and Ventnor area, there is currently scaffolding at 70 High Street, Shanklin, 26 and 26A High Street, Shanklin, 48 North Street, Ventnor, White City, Culver Parade, Sandown, 10 High Street, Shanklin. There are currently hoardings at the former Carlton Hotel, Esplanade, Sandown, Wight City, Culver Parade, Sandown, 1 Melville Street, Sandown. There are currently skips at Sandown Pier, Pier Street, Sandown, and new scaffolding is due up at 43 High Street, Shanklin. That's on the 13th of February. In the Cows area, there is currently scaffolding at the Red Squirrel Shop and Bella, 73 and 74 High Street, Cows, the Max Aitken Museum, 83 High Street, Cows. There are currently hoardings at 70 to 73 Arctic Road, Cows, and 93 High Street, Cows. And there are currently skips at 42 St Andrews Street, Cows. In the Newport area, there is currently scaffolding at 38 Key Street, Newport, 18 Lugley Street, Newport, Domino's at 41 St James Street, Newport, on Bowling Green Lane, Braunston House, Lugley Street, Newport, Forget-Me-Not, 69 to 70 St James Street, Newport, 3 and 4 Holyrood Street, Newport. There are currently hoardings at Man in the Moon, St James Street, Newport, Slug and Lettuce, that's ex Yates, High Street, Newport. And there are currently skips at the former BHS store, Pyle Street, Newport, and 68 Upper St James Street, Newport. New scaffolding is due up at Readers, 33 South Street, Newport, and that's due up on the 19th of February. In the Ryde area, there is currently scaffolding at the Yarbridge, 99 New Road, Brading, the Star Inn, High Street, Ryde, 16 Cross Street, Ryde, 11 Well Street, Ryde, the Leather and Suede Shop, 21A Union Street, Ryde, Corner House, Church Street, Seaview, ABRI, Madeira Road, Seaview, and 51 to 52 High Street, Ryde. There are currently skips at Slipway, High Street, Seaview, and new skips are due at Holy Cross Church, Pitts Lane, Binstead, and that's due on the 21st of February. In the West Wight area, there is currently scaffolding at 2 Tennyson Road, Freshwater, and there are currently skips at Florins, High Street, Yarmouth. And this week's In Touch. In this week's episode, Julian Jackson talks about the Big Blind Walk.
Now on to the county press for today, Friday, February 2nd. There's one main headline, which is Richie lived his life to the full. Tributes have been paid to a kind, thoughtful and determined young man who once completed Walk the Wight just weeks after having his stomach removed. Richard Bunday, who died of cancer 3 weeks ago, took part in the Earl Mountbatten Hospice fundraiser and the Great South Run during his illness. He had his stomach removed, but the cancer spread to his bowel, liver and kidneys, and last year he was given a terminal diagnosis. He died at the hospice on January 11th, aged 28. Richard's parents, Sue and Kevin, of South Road Cows, have urged all his friends to walk the Wight this year in his memory as Richie's Ramblers. He was such a happy-go-lucky person, always there for friends or anyone else when they needed him. He always thought of others before himself, said Sue, 57. I always tried to keep his spirits up and not let him see how upset I was, but he was in constant pain at the end, tremendous pain. At least that's over now, but I just feel so totally and utterly lost. Richard launched an appeal following his diagnosis to pay for trips to London and New York to ensure he could enjoy the time he had left. That appeal, together with proceeds from fundraisers at the Vectis Tavern Cows, where Richard used to work, meant he was able to visit Madame Tussauds, the Statue of Liberty and Times Square. He watched The Lion King in the West End and visited the team at Carlo's Bake Shop in New Jersey, where his favourite television show, Cake Boss, is filmed. A silence was held for Richard at Park Run in Newport, where he'd been a regular. Richard, who previously worked at Fever and Boutique Nightclub and the Needles landmark attraction, leaves his sister, Pixie, 33, and brother David, 31. He also leaves a legacy in the form of Say No to Cancer, a charity managed by the Vectis Tavern to support young adults with cancer. Richard's funeral will be at Cowes Baptist Church at 1 p.m. on Tuesday. Sue said, Richard left instructions to say no one should wear black. He was a colourful person and he didn't want everyone to be solemn. He wanted it to be a celebration of his life.
No to Compton oil. Plans to drill for oil off Compton Beach have been scrapped by oil investment company UK Oil and Gas Investments, or UKOG. However, the company has said it wants to focus on appraising the onshore oil discovery at Aitken. A licence P1916 held by UKOG for offshore drilling off the Isle of Wight has now lapsed, and the company has said it will not seek to extend it. A spokesperson for anti-oil drilling group Frack Free Isle of Wight said, "This is good news. We were aware during December 2017 this licence had disappeared from UKOG and OGA documents, but no public announcement was made to investors, so we remain sceptical. Frack Free Isle of Wight is now confident this is a massive step forward for our campaign, although there is every possibility that P1916 will be offered again in the next licensing round. But delay is always positive. In the meantime, we can continue to focus on our Clean Fields, Not Oil Fields campaign and protection of Aitken. UKOG has said low geological prospectivity, high environmental sensitivity and consequential high associated drilling costs at the offshore site were the reasons for scrapping the plans. An independent report estimated the Aitken oil discovery and associated Aitken South and North satellite prospects would contain 227 million barrels, with 15.7 million recoverable. Plans are now underway for an appraisal drilling campaign in the first half of 2019 at Aitken. Stephen Saunderson, UKOG's executive chairman, said, "The Aitken discovery on the Isle of Wight remains a key element of the company's 2018 and 2019 growth strategy and plans. We look forward to working with our partners towards a successful 2019 appraisal drilling campaign."
A new construction area designed to encourage pupils to build their skills has been created at an island primary school. Honey Hill Primary School has developed a special construction zone as part of work to help early years pupils develop their personal, emotional and social skills. Island Road staff visited the Newport School to hand over equipment including Men at Work and road closed signs, as well as barriers and a sandbag. They also donated Island Road's workwear, including high-vis tabards and hard hats. Honey Hill Primary Early Years lead Maxine Thompson said, "The children were showing an interest in construction and building because of the houses that are being built near the school site. We wanted to create an outdoor construction area with real tools and materials to help the children develop this interest. We assembled a few things ourselves, but then contacted Island Roads to see if they could help the project in some way too. We were delighted when they offered us some equipment. I'm sure the children will enjoy using it to help them play and learn at the same time." Island Road's lead operative Ryan Jackman, who delivered the equipment to the school, said, "The company was really keen to do its bit to support the school's construction project. We hope the pupils find the equipment useful, and we could see they were enjoying it the minute it was delivered. Hopefully this could inspire some of the children into a future career in engineering."
Freemasons are proud to support Hospice. The care and support provided by Earl Mountbatten Hospice has been recognised with again a £2,440 donation from the Masonic Charitable Foundation. Assistant Provincial Grand Master for Hampshire and Isle of Wight Freemasons, David Foote, presented the cheque to Hospice Chief Executive Nigel Hartley. Mr. Hartley said, "We are always very thankful for the sustained support given by the Masons. They support us in so many ways and on so many occasions. This annual donation is important and supports us to continue to deliver our increasingly broad range of care services, which are needed to meet the growing demands of a wider range of people. Hospice staff provide expert medical, nursing and domiciliary end-of-life care and bereavement support to people in their own homes, care homes, the hospital and in its own premises in Newport." Mr. Foote said, "The work the hospice does, both in the hospice and out in the community, is absolutely outstanding, and we, as Freemasons, are proud to play a small part in supporting such a worthy charity."
Plans put forward by the Police and Crime Commissioner to increase his office budget by £440,000 while cutting specialist officer jobs have been vetoed. The Police and Crime Panel, which met last Friday to consider Michael Lane's proposals, agreed he could raise the police precept by £12 a year, but said the cash should be spent on frontline policing, not more staff for his office. It's the first time the panel has not supported the Commissioner's precept recommendation. Isle of Wight Council leader, Councillor Dave Stewart, who chairs the panel, said, "Against a backdrop of ongoing financial constraint and pressure on police resources, we're satisfied with the new recommendations applied to the Commissioner's proposed council tax increase. It is appropriate to maintain an effective level of policing in Hampshire and the Isle of Wight in the coming financial year." As reported last week, Mr. Lane's proposals to axe more than 160 police jobs across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, including dog handlers, traffic and intelligence officers, plus dozens of staff, were branded a disgrace by Hampshire Police Federation Chairman John Apter. The £12 a year precept increase equates to an extra 23p a week for residents living in a Band D property. Mr. Lane said the increase meant cuts to other services, such as neighbourhood policing, could be avoided. Defending the amount spent on his office, he said, "I follow a strict public service ethos and always test anything I do represents added value. My office costs less than 1% of the budget, and almost all is spent on what I am mandated by government to deliver."
Giant trees felled near Busy Road. The landscape has changed alongside Medina Way, Newport, due to the removal of 35 Leylandi cypress trees. The fast-growing evergreens, commonly known as Leylandi, were felled because of the risk of them falling onto the road. The job was done by Barlow Tree Surgery and Island Grounds Maintenance. Tree surgeon Graham Barlow said, "The trees all backed onto the dual carriageway. The decision to remove them was considered at length, but made because the trees were in decline and trees falling onto the highway would have been catastrophic. The timber and wood chip has been recycled."
A woman drove while over the drink drive limit while trying to escape from her ex-partner, Island magistrates were told. However, Alicia Harrington's appeal to the bench not to bar her from driving due to special reasons failed as she didn't stop her vehicle soon enough to contact police. Harrington, 25, of Fort Mews, Sandown, had previously admitted drink driving at a hearing on January 2nd. She was stopped by police in the early hours of December 17th after being spotted in North Road, Shanklin. Her brake light wasn't working. When she was stopped, she began crying and told officers she was trying to get away from a partner who had been verbally abusive. She gave a reading of 69 milligrams of alcohol in 100 millilitres of breath. The legal limit is 35. Harrington told the court she suffered from joint and muscle conditions, making it difficult for her to walk a distance of 50 metres. She'd said she'd gone out with work colleagues, but her ex-partner turned up at the venue. He kept trying to talk to her, but was told to go away by colleagues. She later agreed to share a taxi ride home with him after she found herself without a lift. When she invited him inside, she claimed he wanted to check her phone, locked the back door, and put the key in his pocket. She said, "I just got up and ran to the car. I locked myself in the car." She alleged her ex-partner began banging on the windows, trying to break in. Under cross-examination, she told the court she'd driven for between 5 and 10 minutes before being stopped by police. Finding against her special reasons appeal, magistrates said the distance driven by Harrington was excessive and she could have called for help after driving away.
Fish on the move at Osborne. There's something fishy going on at Osborne House. English Heritage has started a project to drain a reservoir, so the resident fish have had to be temporarily relocated. The pond was constructed in the 1850s to supply firefighting hydrants and garden irrigation at the former royal residence, but 2 feet of silt and gunge has built up. If a fire broke out at Osborne, the water would be used by the fire service and the silt would block the pumps. Additionally, the condition of the water would cause extra damage to Osborne's interior. The project aims to remove the silt, drain and refill the reservoir. A series of temporary water holding systems have been installed with the same capacity as the reservoir in case the water is urgently needed. Timothy Fagg, English Heritage's maintenance project manager, said, "What makes this a particular challenge is for the past 15 years, fish have taken up residence. Before we can begin, we need to relocate these into a temporary reservoir. We've caught several carp, koi, and hundreds of goldfish. Specialist nature conservation and habitat management contractors 5 Rivers are using a specialised fishing net to ensure no fish are left behind. Around 600 fish have been relocated. The reservoir is a stone's throw from the house, but is regarded as a secret spot as it is hidden from view by a small woodland." Rob Flower, Osborne House General Manager, said, "Caring for Osborne for the benefit of this and future generations is a cornerstone of everything we do. The generous support of members and visitors, as well as donors, enables us to do this. The project to maintain the reservoir is part of the largest ongoing conservation programme in English Heritage's history."
Campaigners battling to save East Cowes' iconic umbrella tree say an independent study has found it poses no immediate danger to the public. Tree surgeon Peter Abraham, who used to work for English Heritage, inspected the tree which was planted by Queen Victoria's road manager more than 100 years ago. He concluded he could find no trace of the honey fungus on the tree that was said to be damaging it, raising fears it could be cut down. His findings have been welcomed by campaigners Bev Webster and Chris Guttridge, who commissioned the report and have been battling to save the tree. Mr. Guttridge said, "I am hopeful now the tree can be saved. I was over the moon about his report's conclusions." In his report, Mr. Abraham of Beatrice Avenue, East Cowes, said he checked the condition of the trunk all around and it appeared to be sound. Its bark was also in good condition. He said, "I would have expected the bark to be peeling off if there was any suggestion of honey fungus." He added, "I then went back to the crown of the tree and again there had been suggestions of dieback. The twigs which were dead and dying were under the base of the crown, and during the summer months when the tree is in full leaf, the twigs under the crown are blocked from the light, and this is a natural reaction to trees of this nature. The conclusion I found on this tree is that it doesn't appear to be in any immediate danger to the public, but an annual inspection would be good practice for the public interest." As reported last week, wildlife presenter Chris Packham joined forces with campaigners trying to save the tree. East Cowes Town Council sent a letter to the Isle of Wight Council calling for an immediate halt to plans to remove the tree. The Council Cabinet members for Planning and Housing, Councillor Barry Abraham, said the authority was exploring a range of options to prolong the life of the tree and a decision to fell it would only be a last resort.
Day of Action for NHS. A day of action is being held for the NHS tomorrow, that's Saturday. The Isle of Wight Labour Party has organised the event, which is supported by the campaign group Isle of Wight Save Our NHS. It begins at 10 a.m. with a rally with speakers outside St Mary's Hospital, followed by a march to Newport at 10:30 a.m. There will be a gathering at 11 a.m. in St James's Square, and Isle of Wight Labour Party members will campaign in the town. Island Labour's parliamentary spokesman Julian Critchley said, Islanders need to open their eyes to the threat to St Mary's future. We must join together and defend our hospital. The Isle of Wight Save Our NHS group said, there are serious concerns about plans to move many services to Southampton and Portsmouth. And there'll be a free showing of Sell Off, the Abolition of the NHS, followed by a talk at 11:30 and 1 p.m. at the Unitarian Meeting House, 9 High Street, Newport, tomorrow.
Religious beliefs are a complicating factor in the death of a 61-year-old Jehovah's Witness, an inquest heard. Michael Warren Reed of Oakwood Road, Ryde, died on July 25th last year, 2 weeks after surgery to remove a cancerous tumour in his bowel. Following the procedure, a rupture leaked fecal matter into his abdomen. Despite multiple emergency surgeries, he developed sepsis and died at Earl Mountbatten Hospice. His family said they would be complaining to St Mary's. Island coroner Caroline Summeray said Mr Reed died of recognised complications of a necessary surgical procedure. His condition was made somewhat more complicated by his religious beliefs. That said, he had a number of other factors which affected his ability to heal well. This included type 2 diabetes and a head injury sustained as a child. Michael Nelson, a consultant surgeon, said Mr Reed consented to an iron transfusion but not a blood transfusion due to his faith, which could have aided his recovery. Speaking at the inquest, Mr Reed's sister, Jacqueline Lynchbury, questioned the care given to Mr Reed in the days after his initial surgery. She said, I will never forget the state he was in when he came back from having his line removed. He was covered in blood. Miss Lynchbury said Mr Reed vomited fecal matter for several days before staff ascertained something was wrong. Speaking after the inquest, the family said the care Michael received at the end was fairly atrocious.
Right route for charity. Southern Vectis has announced its good cause for 2018 is Ability Dogs for Young People. The bus operator will spend the year raising funds and awareness to help pay for the training of assistance dogs who enhance the independence of disabled young people and children living on the island. Southern Vectis General Manager Richard Tildesley said, Ability Dogs for Young People is a crucial local resource, training these wonderful dogs to support the practical and emotional well-being of those who have mental and physical disabilities. Our team has been so impressed by the work they do, and meeting these beautiful creatures and their talented trainers has been a thoroughly worthwhile experience. The charity places Labradors with volunteer foster parents who care for them in their own homes, fully socialise them and start their initial training before they are given more advanced schooling. Once ready, they are placed with a disabled young person.
Bembridge RNLI was launched on Monday to investigate a Mayday call off Shanklin. The Alfred Albert Williams Tamar all-weather lifeboat was launched at around 8 p.m. after a weak Mayday call was received in which the only information heard was Curious Parrot and Shanklin. A Bembridge RNLI spokesman said the Alfred Albert Williams initially conducted a search off Shanklin, during which the Y boat was launched to talk to some anglers on the shore and subsequently further to the west. Having found nothing, the HM Coast Guard agreed she could return to Bembridge. She was recovered by 10:40 p.m.
Fraudsters con woman out of £26,000. An elderly woman was conned out of £26,000 by fraudsters. A con man claiming to be from Beattie called on the 84-year-old island woman last Wednesday and said there was a problem with her phone. She was told she needed to buy insurance and download a program called TeamViewer and other software. Once the software was installed, she was asked to make bank transfers totalling some £26,000. Fortunately, the victim's bank was able to refund the majority of her money. Following the incident, police have urged people to warn elderly friends and relatives to be on their guard against fraudsters. Anyone with information about the incident can call 101, quoting the reference 441 800 33 685. Police have issued the following advice. Never give out any personal information about your bank account to anybody over the phone. If you have given out information which could compromise your bank account security in any way, call your bank to cancel your cards as soon as possible. Never hand over money to someone at the door or transfer money to people online. If you are concerned about a similar incident, call 101, or if a crime is in progress, call 999.
A Brading pub landlord's souped-up Ford Focus RS has been named the best Ford in the country. Petrolhead Richard Fox, who runs the Yarbridge Inn, received the title of Fast Ford Car of the Year 2017 for his car after a public vote. Richard said, "I got sent a parcel and inside was a trophy. I was shocked. I was staring at it for about half an hour. I even got a bit tearful because I have put my heart and soul into this car. It's been a 7-year project to get this car to where it was now." After a friend did a review of the car on his YouTube channel, Jamie FYD, the video went viral. The car is quite famous now. Last year was crazy. Lots of shows, people crowded round it. I didn't think it would get so far. Richard said his love of Ford cars started at a young age. "I've liked Fords ever since I was a young lad and always wanted to buy a really fast one. And the thing is with Ford, young lads can actually buy one. It's not a Lamborghini, it's something people can afford." However, Richard said he spent around £100,000 on his car over the past 7 years. "But I've got sponsors now and a team behind me." Richard has displayed his car at shows such as Ford Fest, Ford Fair and the Isle of Wight Ford Takeover.
Labour stalwart walks away from local party. Simmering tensions between the Isle of Wight Labour leadership and Councillor Jeff Brodie, marred by allegations of bullying and disability discrimination, came to a head this week when the Labour stalwart quit the party. A Labour member for almost 30 years and Isle of Wight councillor for Newport East, Councillor Brodie said his support for Brexit had made him a pariah and the local party had failed to support him after he was diagnosed with epilepsy. He said he had absolutely not resigned as a result of local party investigation, which a party source told the county press had been carried out for several members complained about his bullying and intimidating behaviour. Denying his behaviour had been unacceptable. Councillor Brodie said there was an absolute failure to understand his health condition. "I was diagnosed with epilepsy and it can make me more volatile. I get understanding about that everywhere except from the party, which is disappointing given the party claims to support people with disabilities." Isle of Wight Labour Party Chair Mark Chiverton said, "Jeff is a fiercely resolute politician, so we must accept his decision and move on. In doing so, I would place on record my thanks for the support he has given to the party over many years. The party will not enter into a public discussion about the reasons behind Jeff's decision, but suffice it to say we strongly refute the allegations he makes." Councillor Brodie said he would continue to support Labour nationally and sit in County Hall as an independent Labour member. He said he was sad to leave the party but had become isolated from the local leadership and felt he had no choice. "I can hardly believe it's happened, but there is a sense of relief. All this nonsense about an investigation I can't be bothered with," he said. It is understood Councillor Brodie did not get on with the party's new parliamentary spokesman and general election candidate, Julian Critchley. Formerly the sole Labour representative, Councillor Brodie said, "When you're on your own at County Hall, you need people backing you. I have not had that over the past 9 months, far from it, so I have decided I will battle on without them. The people in my ward have always supported me, and this isn't going to change the quality of my work as a councillor."
Ventnor Men's Shed has moved to a well-equipped mobile building workshop in the town. Support from Ventnor Town Council made the move to Boniface Fields opposite the former St Boniface Primary School, Leeson Road, possible. Ventnor's Shed, where membership is open to anyone aged 18 and over, intends to base several community groups and allotments on the fields there, a group spokesman said. The shed is equipped with power and hand tools. Advice is available for anyone with a project. The men's shed movement started in Australia, where more than 1,000 sheds exist. There are now more than 400 in the UK. Ventnor Men's Shed opening hours are 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Tuesdays and Saturdays, and 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. on Wednesdays.
Pub regulars help cancer patient bus. Customers of a village pub ensured a large chunk of the Wessex Cancer Trust's cash target for a patient minibus was raised over the Christmas period. The Three Bishops, Brycestone, presented a cheque for £1,676 to the charity. The money was raised from a packed programme of events and entertainments held over the festive season, from a meat raffle to a race night and karaoke. The money will go towards the Wessex Cancer Trust's fundraising target for the Daisy bus service used by cancer patients going to the Queen Alexandra Hospital in Portsmouth. Chris Hesse, co-licensee of the Three Bishops, said, "It was a great effort from our customers to raise so much in the space of a week. The need for hospital transportation for cancer patients affects a lot of people from the island, including people living in Brycestone."
A total of £10,782 has been raised for Isle of Wight and national charities through December's Brycestone Christmas Tree Festival. Organiser Chris Goodman said, "So many people in the community were involved and this is a terrific result. It brings the grand total we've raised for so many charities over the past 21 years to £120,197. He added, "This has been achieved through the dedication of many members of this community and the fantastic support of so many friends in the commercial sector."
Makeover run by Pupil Power. With any build, the fun part comes when it is time to add a splash of colour and pick out the furnishings. At the multi-million-pound rebuild of Carisbrook College, this important job has been handed over to the students. A small team of 6 pupils have been assessing colour swatches and carpet samples to add their input to the interiors. The children making the decisions are head girl Sophie Ager, 16, head boy Noah El Alami, 15, Tori Rogers, 14, Lakeisha Strickland, 13, Aine Woodhouse, 12, and Shane Hodnett, 11. They have to choose colours for the chairs in the 267-seat retractable theatre-style seating in the hall and match it with their choice of floor covering. The classrooms are all going to have standard ice flow coloured walls, which is white with a hint of blue, with light grey doors and dark grey woodwork, as this is assessed to be the prime way to get the right lighting and brightness conducive to a good working environment. The children have been let loose on a feature wall in each classroom. They are also choosing the colours of the food tech areas and main canteen, as well as the wet areas, showers and changing rooms. They will have a few days to mull over the choices before reporting back to contractors Sir Robert McAlpine. The new building is currently just steelworks and groundworks, but is expected to be completed by February 2019.
Georgie West's waist-length hair was shaved in a college assembly in a dramatic fundraiser. Georgie, 17, a student at the Island Innovation Sixth Form campus, raised £1,400 by having her head shaved in front of the school community. Her hair has been donated to the Little Princess Trust, which creates wigs for cancer sufferers. The money is going towards raising awareness of myeloma, a cancer which develops from plasma cells in bone marrow. Georgie's dad, 48-year-old Adrian West, was diagnosed with myeloma in June 2016 and was told it's incurable. He and the rest of the family have told Georgie how proud they are of her for sacrificing her hair. Georgie has a Just Giving page. Search for her name to donate.
Tories retain council seat. The Conservatives held on to their council seat following a by-election in central Wight, but with the amount of votes cast for the Tories slashed by just under half. Steve Hastings won the seat with 547 votes. The turnout was 38.61%, and the number of ballot papers issued was 1,102 out of a total electorate of 2,854. The by-election was called following the resignation of Bob Seeley after he was elected as the island's MP. At the previous election, Mr Seeley won with 1,026 votes. Councillor Hastings had stood as the Tory candidate for Newport Central at last year's council election. The full results were Steve Hastings, Conservative, 547, Nick Stewart, Liberal Democrat, 286, Daniel James, Green Party, 143, Simon Haytack, Labour, 101, and Terry Brennan, UKIP, 24 votes.
2 men from East Cowes have been jailed for 4 months, suspended for a year, after admitting producing cannabis. Sonny Aitken, 33, of Connaught Road, and Robert Harrison, 28, of Adelaide Grove, were caught by police after it was reported there was a strong smell of drugs coming from their car, magistrates heard on Tuesday. The vehicle was stopped by officers in Fairley Road, Newport, on October 30th last year. The driver, Aitken, had traces of the cannabis plants on his trousers, and there were 3 large bin bags containing cannabis in the vehicle. Mobile phones were seized from both men, and when officers went to Harrison's house, they discovered a set of scales and plants. The total value of cannabis seized was between £1,200 and £1,630, said Anne Smout, prosecuting. Both men's phones contained messages which police said related to the supply of drugs. For Aitken and Harrison, Barry Arnott said his client's drug growing was not sophisticated, and a lot of the cannabis was sodden with moisture and would have had to be discarded. He said both of these gentlemen were fully cooperative with the police. They didn't prevaricate. As well as the suspended jail terms, the men were told to complete 150 hours of unpaid work, pay £85 costs, and a surcharge of £115.
Engineering campaign gets backing from MP. Island MP Bob Seeley has pledged support for a national campaign to get more young people into engineering in an attempt to fill a skills gap. The Year of Engineering will see the government work with hundreds of businesses to raise the profile of engineering among young people aged 7 to 16, their parents and their teachers. This will include offering at least 1 million direct experiences of engineering to young people from all backgrounds, from behind-the-scenes tours and family days out to school visits and the chance to meet engineering role models. Mr Seeley said, "I am concerned not enough children, particularly girls, are entering the engineering professions, and so I very much support this fantastic initiative. I am sure will do much to spark the imagination of young people. The fact is, engineering qualifications are vital to this country's and this island's continued prosperity. But the UK faces an estimated shortfall of 20,000 engineering graduates a year. This is a serious issue as we move towards leaving the EU. We need a country of young people with the best skills. Around half of companies say the shortage is having a significant impact on productivity and growth, so action is needed now." The campaign will showcase the creativity and innovation of engineering careers and widen the pool of young people who could consider the profession, as presently it is 91% male and 94% white. More than 350 businesses and organisations across the country have signed up to support the Year of Engineering, including BAE Systems. More information about the campaign is available at www.dft.gov.uk/year-of-engineering-2022. 2018.
And that concludes the first part of today's Talking Newspaper. So it's goodbye, best wishes from Howard.
And it's goodbye from Madeline.
Hello, I'm Paul, reading to you today.
And I'm Pauline.
And I will start with Letter of the Week by Paul Knocker at Bembridge. Why not frack? Britain urgently needs a new source of domestic energy to replace coal. Our ageing nuclear plants that are due to be shut down and declining North Sea gas or oil. We are increasingly dependent on imported gas through pipelines and shipments from Qatar. Both are vulnerable and subject to global price spikes. We already have the most expensive electricity in Europe, partly the result of the huge subsidies for wind and solar that are added to our bills. These are the latest figures that I could find for our current energy mix. Gas 44%, nuclear 22%, wind and solar 16%, that's variable, coal 9%, biomass 8%, and hydro 1%. Britain urgently needs to develop its reserves of shale gas, which has proved a game changer for the US economy, with extraordinary advances in the technology, efficiency and cost. But we have wasted 6 years as a result of the kind of anti-fracking protests in the county press the 26th of January, led by Green MEP Keith Taylor. Unfortunately, the industry and the government have failed to make the case for the development of shale gas, and the word fracking has been stolen by those who believe renewables are the answer.
And a letter from Louise Walker, who is head of Isle of Wight Ambulance Training and Community Response Services. I struggle to find the words to express my huge disappointment to learn the Kells defibrillator has gone missing. As an ambulance service, we and our defibrillator guardians work extremely hard to ensure these life-saving devices are in place should anyone suffer a sudden out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. If an unconscious casualty's heart goes into a shockable rhythm, the chance of survival with CPR alone can be less than 7%. However, if a defibrillator is there within the first 3 minutes, their chance of survival can increase, in some cases, to as much as 74%. If anyone knows the whereabouts of the defibrillator taken from Birmingham Road, Cowes, please call 101. If you know who has taken it, ask them to return it to the outside wall box so that it can once again be available for all the community.
There's a letter here, Bin's Solution, from James Tyler at Shanklin. Last week, when it was very windy, as it often is on the island, the refuse collectors emptied the bins and the kitchen waste. As usual, they took the waste in the bag out of the kitchen waste bins and threw them back down on the floor. Within seconds, the bins were rolling in the road. The council is always saying it is stuck for cash, so why can't the collectors put the small bins back into the large bins? This would save money by not having to replace bins that get damaged. Small bins that end up in the road are a driving hazard and surely must cause accidents in some instances. This action would not take any extra time.
From Harry Rees of Newport. The recent debate in Westminster Hall regarding Isle of Wight local government funding. Bob Seeley column, County Press 18. The government is well aware of the Isle of Wight Council's financial situation, as were previous governments, none of which took any real action to alleviate the island's financial disadvantages. In 2020, we have the Fair Funding Review for local authorities. To me, this will be a visit to Never Never Land, given the government's own precarious financial situation. The Chancellor will have little room to help local authorities. The island's MP has committed himself publicly to such a call, starting with this debate. A search of our council records will show that for years it has fought for such recognition. I'm reminded of the judicial review undertaken by this council against the then government, and the judge in his summing up asked the government's representatives, when will the government stop the island and its residents falling through the statistical net, a situation that still exists today. I must point out it is not just the council's own finances that require attention, but that of other government funding streams not available to the island, i.e. the withdrawal of Leader Plus funding for the rural community. An urgent need to review the Solent Local Enterprise Strategy approved by government, the Assisted Area Status funding. The The government could and should have used Article 105C to designate the whole island. This would have given the island the opportunity to obtain many millions of pounds for inward investment, etc. Finally, there is the urgent need to review how the island's health and care are provided and funded.
There's a letter now. Consult on this traffic plan from Dr. John Rose, retired transport planner, Shalfleet. The proposed road changes in the county press the 26th January are part of a much larger scheme, and it's important everybody is fully aware of the full scheme to change the traffic layout in Newport and how this larger scheme affects them. The full scheme, prepared a number of years ago by consultants appointed by the Isle of Wight Council and currently estimated to cost £9.5 million, includes dividing all traffic from the lower part of the High Street down Lower St James Street and along Honeycross Way to join Medina Way. Plans are available showing how the consultants plan to increase the capacity of local junctions and widen the southbound carriage of Medina Way from 2 to 3 lanes between Honeycross Way and Coppins Bridge. Council officials at a 2011 public inquiry into the island plan agreed this widening of Medina Way would involve having to build another bridge over the Medina alongside the existing bridge, as there are significant engineering problems in trying to widen the existing bridge. Have any detailed investigations or costings for this bridge been carried out yet? What is the effect on the Riverside Centre? It is important to realise the headline about ending congestion only applies when the full plan is completed. The detailed proposals shown for the St Mary's roundabout area will by themselves do nothing to ease the extensive traffic congestion around Coppins Bridge and Newport Town Centre. In fact, by making it easier to join the St Mary's roundabout from the Honey Hill direction, these proposals will actually encourage extra traffic to use Honey Hill. The full traffic scheme means more vehicles will be able to approach Coppins Bridge. This means more vehicles will use the already congested roads approaching Newport, such as Fairley Road and Staplers Road. Are residents of these roads and other roads that are affected aware that what is planned, and are they happy? I think there should be an exhibition and proper in-depth public discussion of the full implications of all the council's traffic plans for Newport. This should include identifying which roads are expected to have more traffic. The proposals involve major engineering works, including the extension or rebuilding of at least 3 bridges. What happens if the full scheme turns out to cost more than £9.5 million? Where is the Isle of Wight Council going to find the extra millions? Is it going to carry out part of the work and stop? If it is not careful, the council could be heading for a downfall.
A letter from Tim Bowman of London. There is an interesting little footnote to the Better Ferry campaign, that spiky but ephemeral little group that sprung up in 2013 to campaign, as the name suggests, for better ferry services. The group was fronted by several local businessmen, notably one Patrick Seeley, an investment banker, who also happens to be a cousin of new MP Bob Seeley. Explaining its mission in life, the Better Ferry Group complained regular commuters struggle to cope while local businesses pay over the odds to survive, friends and family can't afford to visit, and holidaymakers stay away. After the Better Ferry campaign withered on the vine, Mr Seeley again popped up as a member of the much-vaunted Transport Infrastructure Task Force, which appointed itself to undertake an independent view of local transportation needs, including, naturally, the ferry companies. You may therefore think it odd that among the list of, presumably salaried, new non-executive red funnel directors was none other than Patrick Seeley, his attitude towards the existing ferry operators having now apparently softened. One could, if being generous, argue that we're better to address the deficiency in cross-Solent operators than in the boardroom of one of them. We'll see. It will certainly be interesting to see whether Mr Patrick Seeley agrees with the pithy view of his red funnel chairman, Kevin George, that the recent call by Cousin Bob for regulating of the ferry service was a hollow dream. It should make for an interesting next board meeting, if nothing else.
We've got a letter now from the other side of the world. This was from Catherine Beattie and Irene Smith from Australia. We are searching for the members of the Spanner family. George Spanner was born on 24th of June 1835 in Ryde to Charles and Mary née Griffin Spanner. In 1887, George and Fanny née Kane Spanner, both schoolteachers, emigrated to Australia with 6 of their 7 surviving children. One son, George Charles, remained and married Sarah Rebecca Spencer and had a family. In Australia, the 6 children of George and Fanny thrived, married and had families. Our grandfather, Micro Livingston Spanner, had 10 children, one of whom was our mother, Beatrice Maud. George Sr. had a brother, Charles, born 3rd of December 1833, who married Anne Elizabeth Philbrick and had several children. However, we believe that George Sr. also had a number of aunts and uncles in his family. In early May 2018, 2 great-granddaughters of George and Fanny are visiting the Isle of Wight for a few days and would very much like to make contact with other members of the family interested in our family history.
From Dean Francis of East Cowes. What has the Police and Crime Commissioner ever done for us? If anyone was pondering such a question and has failed to come up with an answer, you're not alone. I am confident, however, I could pick him out at an ID parade. The PCC's strategic blueprint for 2016 to 2021, entitled A Plan to Keep Us Safer, has in its 32 pages 44 photographs of Mr Lane. I'm bound to wonder if part of his office costs extend to the employment of a personal photographer. The document itself is bereft of anything that makes me feel safer or indeed moderately confident moving forward. It must be kept in mind Hampshire Constabulary covers an area that returned 17 out of 19 parliamentary seats to the Conservatives and elected a Conservative PCC. That's potentially quite a weight of influence on the Conservative government if they chose to take up the cause of underfunding of the Hampshire force. But along with the latest news that Hampshire Constabulary is again to be cut, but only it appears the bits of the force that patrol the streets or turn up to help us out in times of emergency, we learn Mr Lane wants to increase the budget for the PCC by £1.14 million. Doubtless the thin blue line will be relieved to know that while they are short-staffed and dealing with a challenging and often dangerous operational workload, at least the PCC is well resourced for his job. John Apter, chairman of Hampshire Police Federation, was prompted to declare he would not have supported the PCC's call for an increase in council tax had he known the PCC did not intend to wholeheartedly target those funds towards frontline policing. Mr Apter is reported to have used the word misled when commenting on the issue. Very strong stuff indeed from a serving officer in relation to the incumbent PCC. Only a few weeks ago, Mr Lane was selling his proposals to increase the police precept element of council tax to maintain and restore policing in certain areas. Why, when appealing for funds, did he not make clear his ambitions to expand his own administration? So here on the Isle of Wight, possibly the most under-resourced district command in one of the nation's most under-resourced constabularies, I beg to question, what has the PCC ever done for us?
There's a last letter for today from Godfrey Holby at Totland with a title Camp Hill Cottage Hospital. I understand the recent long waiting times for patients in A&E at St Mary's Hospital have been due to an amalgam of influenza, shortage of medical staff and another shortage, beds. Bed blocking has been a problem for the NHS for many years. That no beds available is in part because of the disposal of cottage hospitals by local councils eager for the cash value of the sites for development. I suggest this is similar to the problem at St Mary's. It is reported that Isle of Wight Council is considering a move to the former Camp Hill prison. Why? Again, it is reported the council's current building is too big and too ugly. That council was able to squander funds on such a move must be irritating to the taxpayers of this island, who are constantly being berated it is cash strapped. Why not develop Camp Hill into a cottage hospital? I understand £12 million was spent in 2007 on refurbishment. What that entailed I do not know, but here is a substantial building a stone's throw from St Mary's which could do so much to alleviate the island's only hospital.
And now we're looking back, and we start with 100 years ago, February the 2nd, 1918. A soldier from the West Wight was shot dead while on leave on the eve of him returning to the Western Front. The man who shot him had been having an affair with the soldier's wife during his 3 years fighting in France. The affair came to light on the soldier's return home, which led to the killer being thrashed by the aggrieved husband. According to the police, the soldier had not let the matter rest and warned the man he was going to kill him next time he saw him. The killer, fearing for his life, admitted manslaughter after he used a German revolver against the soldier when he appeared at an island magistrate's court. Also that year, with national resources stretched, meat supplies on the island were at seriously low levels. Members were warned at a meeting of the Royal Isle of Wight Agricultural Society. Following an emergency meeting of the Society's Area Advisory Committee in Reading, they advised island farmers to avoid gluts in the market, not to take all their stock to market on the same day, and, in a bid to keep control of stock numbers, to inform the committee what types of stock were to be sent to market a fortnight in advance.
We now move on to 75 years ago, February the 6th, 1943. In recognition of the excellent work canteen helpers and friends did to make British forces feel at home in Ryde during the Second World War, they were entertained with a social and whist drive at Ryde Town Hall. Around 300 members of the Ryde Canteen and Social Centre with visiting servicemen attended. The audience was told nearly 500,000 meals were served in Ryde in 1942, with 4,000 free teas served to servicemen on Christmas Day and Boxing Day that year. Also, same year, at the annual meeting of the Isle of Wight County Teachers Association, members were told emergency measures to bring new teachers into schools were urgently needed, and the issue of schools damaged during the war and rural schools without proper amenities need to be addressed.
50 years ago, February the 3rd, 1968, 3 hovercraft built on the island were being used in the Vietnam War. The SRN-5 models, built by the British Hovercraft Corporation in Cowes, were used by US Navy to challenge and search junk boats and sampans sailing along the coast and patrolling the rivers of the Mekong Delta. Many times they came under fire but were never hit as they sped along at 70 miles per hour. The hovercrafts had been specially adapted for faster speeds thanks to American-made turbines fitted.
And 25 years ago, January 29th, 1993, a new dinosaur museum in Sandown was the main feature of a strategy put forward by South Wight Borough Council, aimed at reviving the bay's flagging tourist industry. Councillor Heather Humby said the island should be cashing in on major prehistoric finds made locally. We should make an Isle of Wight dinosaur island, and as an authority we should be pushing the county to get cracking with the museum, she said, at a tourist subcommittee meeting of the council.
And finally, 10 years ago, February the 1st, 2008, more than 1,000 marchers converged on County Hall in a concerted bid to save island schools from closure. Described as the biggest protest the island had ever seen, children, parents, teachers and councillors held banners and chanted, "Save our schools." The event was held in a bid to overthrow the Isle of Wight Council's education shake-up plans, which aimed to close half the island's primary schools.
We'll now move on to White Memories. There's an article by John Marino, Camping and Computers in Today's Scouts. An eventual decade has passed since the first in Newport, the Old Guard Scout Group celebrated its centenary, which could soon be verified as the oldest existing scout troop in the world. With the scouting movement modernising, First Newport is moving along the times, while working hard to retain its traditional core principles. Things have changed considerably since Lord Robert Baden-Powell began the scouting movement in 1907, with groups nowadays such as First Newport having to compete with the temptation of the computer to win over youngsters. The troop has survived several threats of folding in its rich history to hold the distinction of being the oldest scout group in the world, which has yet to be officially verified by the Scout Association, while a few others lay claim to that title. The boys of the Old Guard will be marking the troop's 110th anniversary with a reunion of members, past and present, at its headquarters in Woodbine Close on Saturday, February 10th. The group's museum will be hosting an exhibition of old photographs dating back to First Newport's early days, as well as showing vintage DVD footage and memorabilia. In its early days, First Newport used to meet in a big room above Hamilton and Marshall's Undertakers in Holyrood Street. The troupe was given the freedom of the Borough of Newport in 1974 in recognition of its valuable work in the community. The troupe's president since 2010, Geoffrey Cox, who has been involved with the Scouts since he was 12 and with the Old Guard since he was 20, was the officer who received the honour on behalf of the troupe. The retired firefighter, who is 76, said, "Over the past 10 years we have improved the quality of our facilities and especially the training programme. This has included computing, but we have kept the traditional elements to help develop their characters and accept responsibility to do things. Scouting has changed for the better over the years, and lots of girls involved nowadays. Young people learn a lot by doing things, from camping and cooking to tying knots. Most of our lads have gone on to do very well in life. The Old Guard has around 80 members aged 6 to 14, with 55 achieving the highest scouting accolade, the Queen's Scout Award. Since the 50s and before that, 12 earned the King's Scout Award. Recruiting adult scout leaders and volunteers, helpers, has traditionally proved to be difficult, but the first event has increased its leadership strength by 3 and seen an improvement in helper numbers in recent years. Newport Group Scout leader Rod Warren, 51, who has been with the group since he was 14, said, following a 25-year decline in numbers, the scouting movement recovered in 2007 during the Scouts Association centenary. They have increased nationally and year by year by 4% and around 6% on the island.
It is difficult to try to get the right balance with the training. One of the new things is they can achieve an IT badge as part of it, but we feel it's important to get young people outdoors as much as possible, something the scouting movement has always tried to encourage. The troop has given 110 years continuous service to the community, surviving several threats to its existence, such as the lack of money, the leaders needed to run it, and 2 world wars. It is testament to the huge amount of work done by volunteers. Founded by John Henry Edward Burgess, a pioneer of the scouting movement during the early part of the last century, the group was established in January 1908 and registered a month later. The group, formerly called First Newport IW Troop, the Old Guard, initially comprised hounds, wolves, peewits and tigers, but is now made up of scouts, cub scouts, beavers and explorer scouts, as well as a new satellite troop of 14 who attend St George's School, Newport. The first camp at Buckham Down near Newport in the summer of 1908 illustrated the types of activities scouts undertook in those pioneer days. A cyclist patrol was organised to simulate moving through hostile territory and to cover the main trek party, alongside tea making, signalling and other domestic duties. To mark the 54th anniversary of the first Newport founder's death, there will be a camping trip to Garston's Pit, Gatcombe on February 17th. The troop did not escape the horrors and hardships of war. A plaque in the Scout Hall honours 22 scouts who died during the First World War, and the troop was called upon for civil defence duties, such as acting as messengers, casualties for air raid exercises and salvage collectors when the Second World War broke out. Among the Old Guard's highlights was the opening of the Troops Hall in September 1971 by the Chief Commissioner of Scouts for England, its band playing for the Burma Star Association reunion, and the Royal Albert Hall, and the visit of Prince Charles to Newport in 1982. Anyone interested in becoming a Scout leader or helper with the troop can contact Mr Warren on 528181.
We'll now move on to my view, and there's an article here by Rebecca Roncaroni. In Dickens' David Copperfield, when an exhausted Davely finally gets to his Aunt Betsy's, she asks her friend Mr Dick what they should do with a boy who is hungry, cold and wet. Despite being described as feeble-minded or an amiable lunatic, Mr Dick's response is delightfully simple. Then we must feed him and give him warm clothes, he says. With this in mind, I was interested to see in one of the Isle of Wight community pages on social media last week that someone had written about their concern at seeing many young people walking to and from school in freezing cold and wet weather without a coat. They asked if this was due to fashion trends, being hard, or poverty. The answers were interesting. Many people felt young people didn't wear overcoats as it wasn't cool. However, the clear majority cited the fact there were no cloakrooms at schools or not enough lockers. This means if a young person wore a coat to school, they then had to carry it around with them all day, along with the books, lunch boxes, toiletries, PE kit, and possibly musical instruments. A wet coat on top of all that was too much hassle. Another common theme among the comments was that students were not allowed to wear their overcoats on school property, and were being told to take their coats off at the school gates, even in the pouring rain, and change into the school blazer. If there was a place to hang them, then theft was an issue, or the places where coats could be hung were so far away from the students' classes, even though they have to move outside in the rain, there wasn't time to go back, put their coats on and get the lessons on time. I rang all the schools that offer secondary education on the island to ask about this. Only Ryde School rang me back. Ryde's second master, Keith Dubbins, said they took a pragmatic approach. If the weather was cold or wet, students were expected to wear the appropriate wet weather gear, and places for that clothing were provided. Common sense incarnate. I spoke with parents, pupils and teachers and came to the conclusion that everyone carries responsibility in this. The parents or carers have a responsibility to provide the coat and encourage their offspring to wear it. The young people have the responsibility to wear the coats, not leave them at a mate's house, at school, on the bus, etc. The schools have a responsibility to provide adequate, accessible and secure space for said coats to be hung up. As some of our high schools become so ridiculously rigid about the school uniform and brand, they don't provide the facilities for wet weather gear and would rather students be wet and cold but correctly uniformed and then take a flexible, pragmatic approach to the issue. Surely the person inside that uniform is more important than the clothing they are asked to wear. If branding is so important to these schools, then maybe, rather than asking parents to fork out for ridiculously expensive blazers, they should have a sensible coat with the brand on instead. Finland, which has no uniform policy in bitter winters, has the highest educational achievement in the world. So why are schools in this country so hung up, pun intended, about uniform anyway?
And now Malcolm Mime says, can new MP do better than last? In June of last year, the good people of the Isle of Wight elected Captain Bob Seeley as our new MP. Captain Bob secured 51.3% of the vote, which was the highest percentage since Mark Woodnutt's victory of 1970. I wasn't one of those who voted for Captain Bob, not because I didn't think he was the best candidate, but because I could never bring myself to vote for the selfish party. However, there is no arguing that Captain Bob ran a good election campaign, and he certainly seemed to have far more about him than his predecessor, Andrew Wrong and Dangerous Turner. If I were asked to list Mr Turner's top 5 achievements from his 16 years in office, the end of my pencil would be chewed to the core and my head would be well and truly scratched. I honestly couldn't list one. As far as I'm concerned, there are just 2 things that I want Captain Bob to do as our MP. 1, get the Isle of Wight more government money, and 2, make the ferries more affordable and with regular timetables. It isn't a lot to ask, and yet Andrew Turner failed miserably on both these counts. In fact, Mr Turner's attempts to get more funding amounted to 1, putting his name to the Community Fun Fight for the Wight campaign, and 2, asking the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Philip Hammond, if he regarded the Isle of Wight as a special case. Mr Turner failed to follow up the Fight for the Wight campaign, and he was completely pied off by the Chancellor, with the result being no extra funding for the Isle of Wight. As for the ferries, during Andrew Turner's reign, the fares soared and the regularity of the service decreased. We even lost the incredibly precious 1 a.m. car ferry back from the mainland, which was crucially important for all those of us who like to attend evening shows or concerts in London and be able to get home afterwards.
Right, we now move on to some news items. Discover Isle of Wight Heroes. The Isle of Wight Hidden Heroes Travelling Museum is touring the island over February half-term. It shines a light on those who have achieved innovative, fascinating, life-changing or awe-inspiring things on the island. Between Monday, February the 12th and Friday, February the 16th, the Travelling Museum will be wending its way across the island and spending a day in at least 5 new locations. In the museum, actors play the part of enthusiastic and funny museum owners as they encourage you to uncover remarkable stories of kings, inventors, speed freaks and artists, discovering the people who helped make the island great and some who have even helped shape the world. Visits are anticipated in Newport, God's Hill, Cowes Ride and Carisbrook Castle. Check the Hidden Heroes website for times and locations.
Did you have flowers in your hair? To celebrate its 50th anniversary, the Isle of Wight Festival is asking for anyone who attended the iconic 1968 event to share their experiences. The 1968 Isle of Wight Festival took place at Ford Farm and featured performances from Jefferson Airplane, Arthur Brown, Tyrannosaurus Rex, Fairport Convention and The Pretty Things. Over the following couple of years, the festival went on to become world-renowned for iconic performances from artists such as The Doors, The Who and Jimi Hendrix. A spokesperson for the festival said, "Whether pulling pints for T-Rex or meeting the love of their life while watching Jefferson Airplane, all sorts of stories can be submitted. Any festival goers whose stories are used as part of the celebrations will receive rewards relating to this year's festival." This year's festival takes place from June the 21st to the 24th at Seaclose Park, Newport, and will feature headliners Depeche Mode, The Killers, Kasabian and Liam Gallagher. The Script, James Bay, Blossoms and Van Morrison are also set to take the stage across the weekend.
Well, that's quite interesting because I was there in '68. Do you have spare toy pigs for money? Monkey, sorry. It may sound like an odd request, but does anyone have a spare toy pig? Jimmy, a cherry-crowned mangabey who lives at Monkey Haven, can't get enough of the squeaky toy. He was given his first pig when he arrived on the island in June, after spending 7 years in isolation at a German rescue centre, and needs a new one. The Haven has appealed for donations. Jiminy is obsessed with his toy pig, but his partner, Boona, is just as obsessed with destroying his squeaky toy. Pig number 1 was given to Jiminy to help his rehabilitation. We're now on pig number 10. Any more pigs will be gratefully received. Monkey Haven will reopen on February the 10th after a winter break. The rescue centre on the outskirts of Newport is running a competition to name its new baby marmosets, and a new reptile house is due to open in the spring.
Wave the Flag for the Island, a new annual festival of open-air picnic concerts celebrating the Isle of Wight's music, food, people and red squirrels, is set to launch in August. The Wight Proms caters to lovers of both classical music and musical theatre and will take place in the grounds of Northwood House between August the 17th and 19th, as well as inside the Grade 2 listed house. Tickets are set to go on sale this month. Picnic hampers containing Isle of Wight produce will also be available to pre-order when buying tickets. A full lineup of international headline artistes, island-based performers and activities will also be announced later this month. On Friday, August the 17th, there will be free community workshops for children and young adults, which will continue into the weekend. On the Saturday, August the 18th, Wight at the Musicals is being held, bringing the world of musical theatre, including some of the best known and most popular songs from the West End and Broadway, to the island. On Sunday, August the 19th, there will be the last Wight of the Proms with a celebration of British music and flag waving, including Pomp and Circumstance, Jerusalem, movie themes and more.
We're going to mix a few what's on in with some general news now. A messy church is being held at Freshwater Methodist Church today, Friday, between 3:30 and 5:30 p.m. Crafts, games and food, all ages welcome. Children must be accompanied by an adult. There's a tea and chat club is held at the Holy Family Centre next to St Saviour's Church, Totland, on Mondays 2 till 4, all welcome. The Magic of Music, presented by David Shirley, is being held at Freshwater Memorial Hall on Wednesday at 2:30. This week it is Beethoven Symphonies 5 and 6. Admission is £3. If you enjoy thoughtful and lively discussion, visit Cowes Philo Cafe at Cowes Library on Thursday from 7 to 9.
Action on hearing loss will be at Brycestone Methodist Church this coming Tuesday, and that's between 10 a.m. and 12 noon. They'll be able to give advice, show you batteries, how to do cleaning and retubing and various other things. An Age UK Isle of Wight weekly memory group, which brings together people with memory loss, meets at the Gouldings, Freshwater, each Thursday between 10 and 3 p.m. If you wish to contact them, it's phone 525282. And residents can have their say on the future of the island at a workshop at the West Wight Sports and Community Centre, Freshwater, on Thursday between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. The event is organised by Community Action Isle of Wight.
Showing off benefits of dance, Island MP Bob Seeley put his best feet forward when he attended a dance class geared towards older people. Dance Makers is a gentle, creative dance programme run by local charity Independent Arts. It offers older people the chance to participate in 6 different groups across the island. Dance Makers can help to improve balance, coordination, muscle strength, memory and confidence. Mr. Seeley watched the group perform their piece on New Year, New Beginnings, and then stopped to chat to the group about the project. Participants spoke to him about the vulnerability of grant-funded projects and the positive impact Dance Makers have made on their lives. For more information on Dance Makers or other independent arts project, call 822437.
And continuing the dance theme, Darcy Bustle, Dame Darcy Bustle, is returning to the island and you could dance with her. She's going to be leading a session of DD Mix dance at Ventnor Winter Gardens on Sunday, June the 10th. DD Mix is an aerobics class based around different types of dance, which is being choreographed by Dame Darcy and Nathan Clark. Weekly sessions on the island take place in Ventnor, Ryde and Seaview and are open to everyone. The session, being led by Dame Darcy, is expected to attract a few hundred people, as it did in 2017. Tickets will be available soon.
Promising young guitarists to visit the Isle of Wight. The next concert in the West Wight Arts Association season will be given by classical guitarist Sean Shibe next Saturday, February the 10th, in the Memorial Hall, Freshwater, at 7 p.m. Born in Edinburgh in 1992 of English and Japanese heritage, Sean studied at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland and with the inspirational Palo Pagoreo in Italy. At the age of 20, he became the first guitarist to be selected for the BBC Radio 3 New Generation Artist Scheme, and the only solo guitarist to be awarded a Borletti Bollettini Trust Fellowship. He was selected by Young Classical Artists Trust in 2015. He will play Scottish lute music from the Balcarres, Rawalian, Strathclyde and Wemyss manuscripts from between 1695 and 1702. J.S. Bach's Lute Suite No. 2 in A minor and a selection of etudes and preludes by Villa-Lobos. Tickets are available from www.westwights.co.uk or phone 756028. Advanced booking is recommended.
Adam Richardson is the latest young island radio presenter to grasp an opportunity to further his career. This former Vectis Radio, an Isle of Wight radio broadcaster, who was initially inspired by the late Terry Wogan, has joined the British Forces Broadcasting Service. Following his initial training in Buckinghamshire and Germany, he was posted over a period of time to Gibraltar, Cyprus, Canada, Falkland Islands and Northern Ireland. Adam, who is 19 in February, dreamed of being the man behind the microphone and at the age of 9 was doing discos at the Ambassadors Club Gunville, thanks to DJ Alan Stone. 2 years later, he made his radio debut in Isle of Wight Radio's Heather McCullum show, with his school friend Ben Tovey. They were in a spot for young people called Studio B. A year or two later, he gained more experience during a short spell with Vectis Radio. After Terry Wogan left Radio 2, the family listened to Topping in the Morning. I wrote to Isle of Wight Radio and was allowed to just sit in and watch the breakfast show, and it went from there, said Adam. Eventually he became a staff member and over a few years went on to host all the major shows as a regular or relief presenter. Adam has also been seen on local stages in amateur theatre productions. His first was the award-winning Red Tide production of The History Boys. His other shows for them have included Beautiful Thing. For the Apollo Players, he appeared in Ladies in Retirement and Habeas Corpus. At BFBS, he will be both presenting and producing shows. These will be heard on the internet, DAB radio, and in the countries where he's working. He says, I'm looking forward to the new challenge and the chance to work in different countries.
The seabird known as the Isle of Wight parson, the great cormorant, is a common enough bird that can be seen right around the coast of the island, in the major rivers and estuaries and inland at large lakes as long as they have fish in them. It is easily recognised with all its dark plumage and a distinctive posture when drying its wings after diving for fish, either perched up on groins, large rocks or trees. So it is not surprising our forefathers likened it to a parson, as the plumage resembles a cleric's attire, and the outstretched wings strongly suggest the Holy Cross and the Crucifixion. The local name of Isle of Wight parson probably started in the 18th or 19th century, but surprisingly was not confined to just the island, as it occurs to the west of us at least as far as Devon. Henry Williamson, the author of Tarka the Offer, the parson is mentioned in this by the way, wrote a short story entitled The 5 Lives of the Isle of Wight Parson when living in a North Devon village. This was in the early 1920s, and the stories appeared in his publication Collected Short Stories. Perhaps 18th and 19th century traders sailing up from the West Country carrying goods to Southampton or Portsmouth and entering the Solent through the Needles Channel saw the large numbers of cormorants that inhabit and nest on the chalk cliffs there. Inquired what they were called locally and took the name home with them. Who knows, but it's a nice thought. In a wider context, the cormorant features to quite a degree in mythology, legend and folklore. For example, it is in the coat of arms of the city of Liverpool, shown with a piece of seaweed or lava in its bill, thus making it the original liver bird. In Greek mythology, when a gale snapped the mast of Ulysses' raft, a sea nymph in the form of a cormorant gave him a girdle or buoyancy aid to help him swim to shore. Milton's epic poem Paradise Lost. Satan disguises himself as a cormorant to sit in a tree of life as a way to get to and seduce Eve. There are many more references, too numerous to mention, illustrating there is a lot more to this bird than would first appear. Next time you pass one by, give him a nod and a hello reverend. He's pretty special.
Singer-songwriter Dean Freedman will be bringing his 40th anniversary tour to Key Arts Newport. Freedman first marked his entry into pop consciousness with the top 20 chart success of his hit single Ariel. The tour marks the 40th anniversary of the 1978 release of his best-selling album, Well Well, said the rocking chair. Freedman will be performing solo on guitar and keyboard, featuring songs from throughout his 4-decade recording career, as well as selections from his newest album. The Rocking Chair album contains some of Freedman's biggest chart hits, including Lucky Stars, Lydia and the title track. This year marks Freedman's 15th appearance at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, where, in addition to his regular concert runs, he has written and produced several hit children's musicals, including Smelly Feet. Freedman has faced his share of controversy in recent years. Though Freedman's single McDonald's Girl was officially banned by the BBC for mentioning the name of the well-known fast food restaurant in its chorus, the irrepressible pop song has been covered by a number of contemporary bands. With the advent of YouTube, 35 years after the song was banned by the BBC, the McDonald's Corporation officially licensed the song for a national TV radio campaign. One of Freedman's recent tours was almost cancelled when it was announced his tour sponsor would distribute packets of cannabis seeds to the first 10 people who purchased CDs at each of Freedman's gigs. The controversy was only resolved after Freeman promised not to distribute the seeds within 50 yards of the venues. Freeman will be at Key Arts on Friday, April the 27th.
And it's goodbye from Paul.
And goodbye from Pauline.
This is the BBC.
This is In Touch, the magazine programme for people like me who are blind or partially sighted. I'm Peter Wight. Thanks for downloading this week's edition. Good evening. Tonight, 2 pieces of potentially good news today, provided the small print doesn't get in the way. That would be particularly unfortunate since we should be one step nearer a world library of large print, audio and braille books. More about that later. But we start with the news that people experiencing early problems with their vision through some forms of macular degeneration should now be able to get treatment sooner than in the past. Sounds like a no-brainer, doesn't it, that the quicker you get treatment for almost anything, the better your chances of a good result. And yet, people with eye problems are often told, you can't have that yet, your sight's too good. Well, this has certainly been the case with macular degeneration, the commonest form of sight loss amongst older people in the UK. There are 2 types of MD, dry, for which there is currently no treatment, and wet, where drug treatment is possible but often available too late. But now new guidelines from NICE, the National Institute of Health and Care Excellence, are changing that. Cathy Yelf, who's Chief Executive of the Macular Society and was closely involved with the drawing up of the guidelines, told me what they'd changed.
The guideline says quite clearly that a patient who is seen by perhaps their optometrist or optician in the high street with suspected wet AMD should be referred that day to a macular specialist, and they should be seen and treated within 14 days if they need treatment. And that is a very clear and very welcome reinforcement of the guideline that has always been there really from the Royal College of Ophthalmologists. But this guideline really sets that out, and there was lots of evidence to support that recommendation. And the second very important development is that NICE says that it is clear from the evidence that it is clinically effective and it is cost effective to treat people with very good vision who have macular disease, and perhaps earlier than they've been treated so far. The sticking point is this phrase, depending on the regimen used, and that is because NICE has done some very complex health economic calculations which says that it's probably too expensive to use the standard drugs to deliver this treatment for the better vision, but it is cost effective to use Avastin instead of the 2 normal drugs, Lucentis and Eylea. And as you may recall, Avastin is controversial because it's a licensed drug for cancer treatment, but it's not actually licensed for use in ophthalmology, and there is a legal dispute around under what circumstances it can be used for eyes.
So what's the way round that? Because if NICE is saying this is only cost effective if, for example, you use Avastin, but some trusts are saying, but we can't use Avastin because it's not licensed, what's the answer to that little puzzle?
Well, it may be that it will be tested in court, but I mean, we believe that some clinics are already using Avastin for these patients, and they haven't been challenged over that, and we welcome that. We think that these patients need treatment. The clinical evidence is really clear that it is much better to treat these patients when their sight is still very good, and so we would support that use.
But who is going to make that decision now? I mean, I suppose what I'm really asking is, how can patients influence this? How can they make sure they get the best chance of treatment quick enough to maintain their sight at a better level?
Well, we would recommend that patients are proactive, and if somebody is saying to them that they can't be treated, they need to get hold of a copy of the guideline. They can do that from our website, and they can also download our frequently asked questions, and they go off to their eye clinic and they say, NICE says that this is effective and cost effective to treat me with this drug. And they will need, really, I think, to demand a sensible answer as to why that can't happen.
And if they still say no?
I think you have to go through the processes. I mean, we would finish up with Ombudsman, I think, looking at it. And it is a very frustrating position that the legal situation over this is so confused and so disputed. And people do not agree. And that is why I think really, in the end, we would quite like a legal decision on whether this is appropriate use licensed user or not.
So let's just take a more normal case where all these things don't necessarily arise. My question really is, if you can now have treatment earlier, if it's spotted early enough, how do you make sure it's spotted early enough? I mean, are there really signs? Because this is based to some extent, it used to be based on whether your sight was good enough to drive, wasn't it? So can you actually know that you've got a problem, and how do you make sure other people know that you've got a problem?
Well, increasingly, fortunately, there's better equipment available in high street optometrist practices now. And we always recommend, and everybody in the eye care business recommends, that people have regular eye checks at their local optician. And they can use this equipment to look at the back of the eye and see if there are the early signs of macular degeneration, because it very rarely comes out of nowhere. There is usually a sign that somebody is at risk of developing late-stage macular degeneration. And those people then can be taught and advised on how to monitor their vision. The key thing is to react quickly if you have some of the early symptoms.
Such as? What are the things to watch out for?
Usually distorted vision. If straight lines become wavy or things suddenly become very small and distorted, then that's an early sign that you may have some fluid in the retina which is distorting your vision. And that's a very important sign that you need to act on quickly and go and see your optometrist either the same day or certainly as soon as practically possible.
To get back to this cost effectiveness argument, though, to end, is this going to reopen the whole debate about Avastin and Lucentis, assuming that it ever went away?
Yes, I don't think it ever has gone away, and I think it is likely to start this again. There are some clinics that will treat patients who have the better vision, and we have been asking many more clinics to do that, and it may be that actually this guideline will give them the confidence to do that. And so let's be optimistic at this stage that actually this is going to be good news for patients, and more clinics will be emboldened to treat patients with the better vision.
So the guidelines came out today. What are the professionals saying about it?
Well, interestingly enough, both the Royal College of Ophthalmologists and the General Medical Council have both seen it as an opportunity really to revisit the Avastin issue. So NICE have been very open about the cost effectiveness of Avastin compared to the licensed drugs. And the Royal College says this is now an opportunity for the NHS to make considerable cost savings. And the GMC have really helped them in this respect by issuing their own statement, making clear that doctors do not need to fear sanction by the GMC if they give Avastin in good faith.
So is this further than the General Medical Council has ever gone before on this?
Yes, I think it is, and I think it's intended to have consequences. We don't quite know what the consequences are. It could be that the NHS will use more Avastin in future. It could be that the pharmaceutical companies come back with a lower price for the licensed drugs, or it could all still finish up in court. I think patients can be reassured, though, that Avastin is widely recognised as a drug that is equivalent in safety and effectiveness as the other drugs, and that is important for patients to remember whatever happens, I think.
That's Cathy Yelf of the Macular Society. Your reactions, please. Details at the end of the programme. But you have been contacting us about a number of recent items. For example, the idea that retailers and advertising companies should come under more pressure to make their ads accessible to blind people by using, for example, audio description. As so often, a mixed reaction. Gail Fagan's keen. She objects to having to ask her husband what's being promoted when ads don't even mention the name of the product or the company that's being advertised. She wonders how people who live alone manage. John Fullwood, though, says when he's asked whether there are any advantages to being blind, top of his list is the fact that he doesn't have to put up with seeing all those adverts posted on billboards, thus avoiding being brainwashed by commercial companies trying to sell him things he doesn't need and doesn't want. Sue Marshall and Anne Farthing were just two of the many people who contacted us to say how much they'd enjoyed hearing Fred and Etta Reid talking both about their campaigning on behalf of blind people and their long and happy family life together. Anne was taught history by Dr. Reid at Warwick University and said he was inspirational. And Sue said how refreshing it was to hear the Reids just getting on with things without too much navel-gazing. Here's an example.
One of the questions they ask you over and over again, it must have been awful not to see your children. Now, of all the things that are lovable about children, millions of them. The things they say, the things they do. Yeah, of course you'd like to see them, but just go on about this one as though, some sort of permanent sadness when you're actually full of the joys of parenthood. And
people used to tell us how beautiful they all were.
yes, that's right.
They were all fair-haired and blue eyes.
You don't pine and think, I wish I could see them. Yeah, fleetingly you might think that.
Well, we could imagine what they looked like.
Fred and Etta Reid, and it was great fun to do the interview. If you missed it, then it's just one of many podcasts which you can download from our website, including tonight's programme, of course. Now, despite the scarcity of hard copy books in a form that visually impaired people can actually read, around 5% of books published in the UK, it's still been frustratingly difficult to get books from other countries, because libraries in the receiving country would have to go through the whole process of getting copyright permission from scratch. 4 years ago, we thought we'd solve this problem with something called the Marrakesh Treaty, where people who signed up said copyright obtained in one country would apply abroad as well. Well, that was 4 years ago, but only now has the last hurdle been finally cleared for it to be ratified by the EU. Well, Seeley Hardy has been closely involved in the RNIB's campaign to secure this treaty, and although there may still be some haggling ahead, she's confident that this is an important milestone.
The Marrakesh Treaty is an amazing milestone, really, in the rights of blind and partially sighted people worldwide. Probably 10 to 15 years ago, people started wanting to create a world accessible library with the idea that why should someone who's produced a Braille book in one country not be able to benefit from it in another country? And it took us a long time, and RNIB and other organisations across the world, under the banner of the World Blind Union, publishers lobbied the World Copyright Organisation, and we found ourselves in 2013 actually reaching that milestone of the potential to have a world library of accessible titles.
Can I just establish why you couldn't do it before? Because organisations like the RNIB would do some swapping with agencies. What was the thing that was stopping, if you like, full steam ahead swapping?
The thing that stopped us having a world library without this treaty being in place was the fact that a lot of publishers would only give you permission for a particular geography, a particular country, and then you'd have to go back to them for permission if you wanted to share that book with another country, and it just becomes too complicated. So what happened was a lot of our books that publishers let us publish in the UK, they wouldn't have necessarily let us share them across the world.
So did that mean that you, for example, libraries would have to spend a lot of time just checking out copyright that had already been checked out by the original country?
If you were going to do it, you would have to go to the publisher, get the permission per individual book, which I'm sure you can see would be just very expensive process.
So what will this enable blind people to do which they couldn't do before?
Well, the really exciting thing is for the 280 million blind and partially sighted people across the world, and obviously a lot of those are in developing countries which have a lot less access to books, it suddenly opens the door to people being able to access hard copy, braille, audio, large print titles that might not have been produced in the country they live in. Now, there's still a lot of work to do to make that a reality, because once the treaty's been fully implemented in each country, then the libraries or the organisations who are trusted to do this will have to begin to talk to each other about how they create that pool of books and how they share them. Right,
we'll come back in a moment to what this means specifically in the UK, but also with us is Mary Honeyball, who's a Labour MEP and member of the European Parliament's Legal Committee. Just explain the significance of last week's vote and where that leaves us.
Well, last week's vote was the final ratification of the Marrakesh Treaty, so it is now EU law. It's been through all the process. So that was what actually happened. But of course, there is a real concern now about what will happen with Brexit. There are quite a lot of treaties done the same way as the Marrakesh Treaty, and we're not at all certain whether it will become part of UK law if and when Britain leaves the EU.
The plan is to have this repeal bill, which means that a lot of the law will pass automatically into UK law.
some of it will. A lot of it will be up to ministers to make decisions about. This is one of the big concerns about the EU withdrawal bill, that quite a lot of important things will not be subject to parliamentary scrutiny, but will be made by ministers. And it would be tragic if the Marrakesh Treaty was one of those.
Have you any reason to think that it will? I mean, is there any evidence that it might be?
Well, we don't have evidence on any of this because we've never left the European Union before. But of course, it's a massive job. The Marrakesh Treaty, as we've heard itself, was a massive job. But bringing EU law into UK law, 40 years worth of it, is huge, which is why these clauses, which have become commonly known as Henry VIII clauses, are in the withdrawal bill to allow them to go through more quickly without going through parliamentary scrutiny.
Seeley, Hardy, what's your understanding of that? Because presumably you have looked at it. You're talking about this as if it's a done deal.
Well, Mary's right to be cautious, and I suppose, you can't guarantee what's going to happen. But at the moment, I feel pretty confident that these provisions will pass into UK law and we will still have them after we leave the EU. Partly I feel confident because actually the UK government's got quite a decent record on copyright exemptions for blind and partially sighted people. And of all the things they could decide not to do, I might be being naive, but I don't think this would be one of them.
So you're just saying realpolitik, as it were. It wouldn't look good to appear to be denying blind people access.
I don't think so. And to be fair, I think, we had exemptions to copyright legislation within the UK probably years before other countries. So I feel that the track record in this country is quite positive.
Assuming this does become a reality for Seeley, who benefits though? Because surely with the developments in electronic books, more and more people are accessing their books electronically, with developments like scanning, using services such as Kindle with their smartphones. That figure of only 5% of books in an accessible format, it's way out of date, isn't it?
You're absolutely right. A lot of people are accessing digital. I think a lot of people aren't, and there's some areas where actually a hard copy title would be a preference for people. So some of the ways in which UK citizens will benefit from the Marrakesh Treaty and the World Library, I think we'd have access to more foreign language titles. So if you think about our minority language communities, we could never produce enough books in this country for people who speak other languages, but actually we would be able to give them access to books in their own language. If you think about students learning, a lot of other countries do produce textbooks in English, so they might want access to that. Particularly, I suppose, if there's diagrams or tables or things they need to study under their fingers in a bit more detail than just listening to the digital format.
Does this now mean that libraries won't have to do all this work when these books come over?
It will be sharing files, electronic files, but what it'll mean is that at the moment we probably have the inefficiency of many countries producing the same title, and it'll mean as we get cleverer and our library systems can talk to each other, it'll mean that we also are more efficient, less duplicative, and hopefully more money can then go into producing more books.
And what about all the other people who are concerned about this, have to worry about this? We're talking about publishers, we're talking about the agents of authors. Are they all on board for this?
I think they were very, very sceptical and scared a few years ago. I feel that they're less anxious, and I think the idea that lots of blind people will go around sort of releasing books into the wider public, probably those fears have subsided just because the reality hasn't come to pass.
That's for Seeley Hardy of the RNIB, and before that we heard from MEP Mary Honeyball. That's it for tonight. We welcome your comments and your queries. You can call our action line for 24 hours after tonight's programme on 0800 044 044, and you can email in touch at bbc.co.uk or click Contact Us on our website. From me, Peter Wight, producer Cheryl Gabriel and the team, goodbye.
This is the BBC.
This is In Touch, the magazine programme for people like me who are blind or partially sighted. I'm Peter Wight. Thanks for downloading this week's edition. Good evening. Tonight, the Big Blind Walk. We'll be exploring the why, the where and the how. And when you lose your walking partner, the pain and a few pleasures when you have to part with a guide dog.
I sometimes smell a perfume and not wet dog. I can ride at the top of the bus.
Well, that's Tanvir Bush in mourning with a few compensations. More from her later. Now, fancy a walk, a stroll to the shops maybe? You might even take on the odd hill. But that's not going to be enough for tonight's studio guest. Julian Jackson won't be satisfied until he's completed nearly 1,000 miles. It's the distance between Land's End and John O'Groats, a very famous distance, of course. And Julian reckons it should take him and a variety of human guides around 7 weeks. Julian Jackson, welcome to the programme.
Thank you, Peter. It's good to be here.
There's only one place to start. Why? Why would you go so far for so long?
First of all, I believe that we need all of us to do much more about raising awareness and understanding of the impacts of sight loss, socially, economically, financially, psychologically. There's a lot of sight loss around, as you know, and it's growing. We're all living longer and getting older.
But I'm bound to ask, how does you walking nearly 1,000 miles help with that?
My answer is, I want to do something to raise awareness and understanding of sight loss. I also want to promote eye research. When I lost my sight all those years ago, I actually knew nothing about the amazing work that so many researchers and clinician scientists are doing on a daily basis to prevent sight loss and treat eye disease and restore sight.
And it's your contention that there isn't enough research on this and that it does not compare favourably with other areas of medical research.
Yes, there's a lot of very good research going on. If you look across the piece, in fact, from cell therapies all the way through to robotics and artificial intelligence. But I feel that not only does most of the population here not really engage and understand eye research, but also that it's one of the most underfunded areas of medical research in the UK. So if I can engage and infuse a much wider population and encourage those in government and in other organisations to think again about the need for greater investment, then I think it's a job well done.
I mean, give me the stats. I mean, when you say it's very underfunded, compared with what, for example?
The government are currently spending more on dental hygiene and hearing loss than they are on sight loss. And when you look at the top 30 charities involved in sight loss, only 1% of what they invest every year goes into eye research rather than the practical support for visually impaired and blind people. When you look at the members of the Association of Medical Research Charities, only 0.7% of the money they invest every year goes into eye research rather than any other form of medical research. Then I think there's quite a disconnect between what people fear around losing their sight and what we're doing to invest in new research.
And that's the interesting thing, because you say that a lot of charities don't invest in it, which includes the charities that deal with visual impairment. I mean, as you said, the RNIB claimed in some research a little while ago that this is people's greatest fear. But this is what the retiring CEO of the RNIB said just over a year ago when we put the question to her about charities' attitude to the funding of medical research.
RNIB took a decision not to get into funding medical research some years ago. And I think that was where we drew the line between the here and now and the future. So we don't put money into medical research and we have no plans to do so. We do put quite a lot of energy and effort and therefore some money into eye health issues. So the easy things that people can do to prevent avoidable sight loss.
You mean things like giving up smoking?
Yes. Giving up smoking, losing weight, a healthy diet, all those things that we all know. But also getting your eyes tested every couple of years.
So what's your reaction to that, Julian?
My reaction to that, Peter, is that she's missing a trick. Eye health is one important issue. But in fact, investing in research that prevents sight loss from happening in the first place, in treating eye disease, in restoring sight, it might be through stem cell research, for example, or in rehabilitating patients through technologies, so important as well. And I want to, with this Big Blind Walk, kickstart the debate amongst government organisations and the voluntary sector into appreciating that we need to do much more.
And yet, I mean, that's what, in a way, we want to do, because there is a debate to be had, isn't it? Because it is reasonable also for a charity dealing with people with visual impairments to say money is very tight, services are diminishing, we have to concentrate on the people who are here now, and that there are other ways to fund eye research.
There are several ways of funding eye research, but Peter, I just want to go back to this point about the support for visually impaired and blind people. When I lost my sight, I really appreciated the white stick training, the computer training, the offer of a guide dog and so on. And I'm not suggesting that that isn't important and hugely valuable to many, many people in this country. What I am saying is that none of that is actually going to give me back my sight or anybody else. And it's certainly not going to prevent the onset of sight loss, and it's not going to treat eye disease. So we do need more investment, and we need more people to talk about it.
And yet, just to pursue this a little bit further, despite what you say is a very inadequate funding level, there is a lot of research going on, and in recent years considerable advances. I mean, cataract surgery is now very much routine procedure because of work.
Yes.
Drugs can slow down some forms of macular disease and even halt them. We're working on gene therapy for inherited conditions such as retinitis pigmentosa, which I think is what you have.
Yes.
The money is being found, isn't it?
Not enough money is being found is the point. And I completely agree with you. When I was diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa back in the mid-60s, my mother was told that she should take us to faith healers. That was really where we were at that point. And you scroll forward 30, 40, 50 years, and yes, we now have laser surgery, cataract surgery, corneal transplantations, wonderful advances in surgical equipment and procedures. They're using next generation sequencing now to sequence the genome. So there is a lot of activity in research, but it needs continual funding.
So where's the money going, and who will decide how it's going to be distributed?
The money is being received by the National Eye Research Centre based in Bristol. They are a national charity. They will be managing the fund. 75% will be going to them. 25% will be going to my social enterprise, Vision Bridge, because I feel passionately that there should be a twin track approach to this. On the one hand, we should be investing more in eye research, and on the other, we should be talking about research. And Vision Bridge is all about trying to make that connection between what goes on in the laboratory and what happens in the clinic.
And that's a national enterprise organisation, which means that you aren't allowed to make profits. Is that right?
Yes, I have a social enterprise. Mm-hmm. We are supported by well over 200 academic researchers, clinician scientists and patient advocates. And we run around the country talking about research, essentially giving it a context that is more inspirational.
Let's just pause for a moment, because we'll come back to the walk itself. I want to take a little detour, though, to explore what happens when man's and woman's best friend is due for retirement. There was considerable controversy on this programme last year when Red Sale suggested that a guide dog wasn't necessarily for everyone, and particularly not for him. Well, writer Dr Tanvir Bush has taken a different view. She recorded her experiences for us from her home.
My best friend, my muse and guide dog Grace, retired last April. And due to circumstances out of our control, she has been, very happily, rehomed with a wonderful family. I am alone, but I'm on the list for another guide dog. Being alone again has caused me some unexpected consternation. You see, Grace was the ultimate icebreaker. Eyes turn to her, expressions soften, people smile when they see her coming. I often felt like her PA, dragging along behind, basking in her reflected glory. Sometimes it could be a right royal pain in the proverbial. In spite of the large black and yellow sign on her harness reading, "Please don't distract me, I'm working," people could still be quite rude when I asked them not to fuss her or to leave us alone so she could do her job safely. Grace didn't help by making eyes at everyone. She could and still can seriously work a room, that dog. when Grace and I, both in full PhD regalia, both hatted and gowned, were invited to lead the procession out of Bath Abbey on our graduation day, Grace just made the assumption that everyone in the Abbey was there for her. She nodded and smiled nobly and posed for photos just like a furry Beyoncé. But the thing is that while Grace was guiding me, I wasn't being given the Crip stare. That slightly slidey, sideways stare that people often use when they're nervous about someone with a disability. There was always this great warm furry beastie between them and the scary blind woman. And now I'm graceless. I've got no conduit, no icebreaker. People have to negotiate me directly again, and I them, and it's hard. For nearly 8 years I was part of a team. People would call us both Grace, and I didn't mind. And I love her so much, I thought the whole of Bath Abbey should have been there just for her. But that's not the point. The point is I'm having to renegotiate my identity again. And I'm blinder than I was 8 years ago, and I'm older. On the plus side, leaving the flat with a guide dog meant harness, water bowl, play collar, lead, dog towel, wet wipes, poo bags, squeaky toy, and sometimes I'd even remember Grace. And now I flit, a mere handbag and cane. I don't leave a trail of poo bags, dog fur and fishy treats in my wake. I sometimes smell a perfume and not wet dog. I can ride at the top of the bus. I can stay overnight at a friend on a whim without having to worry about dog kibble. And I don't have to take Grace out to pee in the howling gales at 5 a.m. I take more risks physically than I would with her too, in that I'll go walking alone, and if things go wrong, at least I know I haven't caused harm to her. I need only be anxious about myself. How deliciously selfish. It is a freedom, but it is a freedom to be lonely. So do I want another dog? Yes, with all my heart. But that dog won't be Grace, so maybe it won't work. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
Dr. Tanvir Bush, interesting to get your reactions to that. Julian Jackson is still with me. Clearly, you're a keen walker. We've established that. Ever contemplated a guide dog?
Do you know, Peter, I haven't.
Why not?
Because I have 2 dogs already. I've grown up with dogs. I love dogs. I don't need another companion. And as Tanvir said, there's a lot of responsibility dealing with a guide dog, living with a guide dog.
I think we ought to find out a bit more about you. And when did you lose your sight?
I lost it completely in 2010. I woke up one day and had this very weird feeling that I would lose it within probably 3 weeks. I'd been seeing out of 2% in one eye for a long time before that, and it's incredible what you can see with 2% in one eye. And I was sure enough, I put my daughter to bed and woke up in the morning and I couldn't see her.
Was that the
and
toughest,
that was quite a tough
toughest thing about it?
Yeah. That was very tough. And I couldn't, of course, navigate my way around the house. I fell over the dog. She wasn't happy about that. And, of course, I couldn't see my wife either. And my friends, I couldn't navigate outside. It became very isolating and very alarming and very confusing and very disorientating, all in one 24-hour period.
Can we talk a bit more about the actual mechanics of this walk? It's all very well to do it, but someone who can see can gain all sorts of things from it. They can look at the scenery, they can watch the wildlife. Isn't walking, if you can't see, a bit dull?
Well, Peter, that's an interesting point. I tandem cycled from John O'Groats to Land's End back in 2010, and you interviewed me about that. The average speed we were doing then was about 20 miles an hour. Walking, we're averaging about 3 miles an hour. So this whole experience is going to be very slowed down for me. I had a very strange compulsion when I went blind to get outside and stay outside. I want to feel the sunshine on my face, the rain, the wind, essentially, battling the elements, if you like. And
because there'll be some quite rough terrain, won't there?
Yes, there will. Especially in the Highlands, but I want to be able to feel the terrain. I also love the interaction with my wonderful guides, who will have that job of not only stopping me from falling into potholes, but also describing the landscapes around me. As you know, Peter, with no sight, you listen very hard.
I'm interested you say that, because there are two ways of looking at it. And, because you want someone describing the terrain and the area and the things around you relentlessly. I can remember when I did my comic relief walk, it was great to start with, and then, it was in the desert, so there's a boulder, there's another boulder, there's a sand dune.
Yeah, a boulder is a boulder.
A boulder is a boulder. Can you have too much chat and description?
Yes, you can. And a great friend of mine who's my tandem buddy, there are periods of silence, which is wonderful. And I'm sure there will be periods of silence on the walk. In fact, a friend of mine who will be guiding me at some stage said to me the other day, "Now, Julian, I am going to be walking with you for 5 days. Do we have to chat all the time?"
And the answer to that is no, you don't.
Certainly not.
No. And are you expecting a good deal of media interest for this?
Yes, I am. There is some good television interest coming down the track, which is great. And I'm hoping that the local regional press will pick this up. Social media has already got hold of it. And I'm hoping that this will become a massive collaborative effort, Peter, and I hope you're going to join me as well somewhere and sometime along the route. I'm a small cog in a very large wheel, and I'm inviting eye health professionals, patients, the public to come and join me.
Well, I'll tell you what, I may well take up your invitation, but I want you to do one more bit of work for us.
Go on, then.
If all that wasn't enough, we'd like your help with a programme we're planning in the very near future. It's an idea suggested to us by listener James Bird. He wanted us to consider the effect of visual impairment on men's sense of their masculinity. He pointed out that regardless of current views of equality, there are still deeply ingrained ideas about what a real man should and shouldn't do. Things like the difficulty of getting a job or being able to take hold of physical jobs and not being able to do it. We thought this was well worth a look, so we'd like to hear listeners' views. And yours first, Julian. Are you partly doing this to prove that a blind man can still be a tough guy?
I've always been a tough guy, Peter. Okay. I don't think I need to prove that I'm a real man. No, joking aside, I'm doing this because I want to also prove that visually impaired blind people and sighted people can get out and enjoy the countryside, and that you can be as mobile as you were before you went blind or became very visually impaired.
OK, well, we wish you the best of luck with it. We'll keep an eye on your progress. And we want to hear listeners' views on that and Julian's proposed walk. You can call our action line on 0800 044 044 for 24 hours after tonight's programme. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk, or you can click on Contact Us on our website and download tonight's and other programmes from there. From me, Peter Wight, tonight's guest, Julian Jackson. Thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you, Peter.
Producer Cheryl Gabriel and the team. Goodbye.